everyone, and welcome to another Zoom Into Books presentation sponsored by Headline Books. Today we are chatting with guest author Grace Blair, author of Einstein's Compass. Welcome, Grace.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Great. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump right in, but a few housekeeping things. If any of you watching have questions that you'd like for Grace to answer, go ahead and type them into the comments section underneath this video, and we can ask them to her at the end of the presentation. Also, if you have to leave early, you can watch the replay of this video here on the Facebook page. We also have a Zoom Into Books YouTube channel that these videos will be posted to as well. So there's lots of opportunities to watch the replay. So don't worry if you have to. These are very strange times. So I know everyone's schedules are very unpredictable. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get a feel for what your book is about and a little bit about you, Grace.
Well, Einstein's Compass is a YA time traveler adventure. It is a story about young Albert Einstein. Everybody knows the story that he is the one who came forward with the E equals MC squared. Everybody knows how famous he is and a great mathematician, but not many people know about young Albert Einstein. And I took 20 years of his real history from the age of about 6 to 26. And through that time period, I said, well, you know, he was from the horse and buggy days. How in the world did he come up with this miracle theory during that time period? I said, he was a little boy all by himself. He wasn't famous yet. And based on what I've read about him, he had a lot of struggles. So where did he come up with this miracle theory? And I said, well, maybe he was from Atlantis. What if he was really from Atlantis? Like a pre-scientist, you know, back in the technology days of ancient Atlantis and the spiritual Atlantis for energy and technology were really what made the world run at that time. And I'm not sure if you know about Edgar Cayce. Have you heard of Edgar Cayce? Well, he was a prophet. And actually, it's Jeannie King's birthday. Jeannie King, who's on here today, she and Edgar Cayce share the same birthday. And he was a prophet who people would come to, and he would go through their past lifetimes. And so he had a number of people from Atlantis and the story of Atlantis. So I took that story of him doing those interviews, as well as other stories about Edgar Cayce, and put them in the story as the background for Albert coming from Atlantis. And he had a twin brother, Albert did, who was not a very nice person. He was a bit of a narcissist and was very jealous of what Albert did and all of the things he was able to accomplish. And so he wanted to be the big guy. So I made him, his name was Raka, which means dragon, actually, in German. And the spiritual person who was Albert's spiritual person, his name is Arka. So Arka is light and Raka is darkness.
Oh, great contrast. That's very cool.
Yeah, my husband and I were sitting around the kitchen table one morning. I have to have something else other than Arka. We have to have a bad guy name. And we came up with Raka. I mean, it was just so perfect. Yeah. You know, the darkness and the light.
That has wonderful connotations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we've got Raka, who in the beginning of the story, you read it, and we're actually in Poseidon, in Atlantis. And he's struggling about what his brother's doing, and he doesn't like it a lot. And so he's going to be the big guy, and they do a lot of things with DNA in Atlantis. Yeah. So he gets a hold of this draconian DNA.
Oh man, that is a great premise. So what inspired you to dig into, like, you know, to even start this research on Einstein? Because you said that, you know, this has been, you know, a project that you've worked on over many years. So what kind of, you know, initiated the spark in this?
Well, he was really a mystic. I thought of Albert coming through with an imaginative, mystical kind of consciousness. And I'm a mystic. I've been studying spiritual consciousness like Edgar Cayce and many others for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to bring forward a metaphysical story. We've had Harry Potter and the witches and the darkness, and I wanted Albert to have the light and the mystical travelers and the spiritual people and the angels helping him create his miracle theory. So what if he had actually spiritual beings who helped him with this mystical compass to create his miracle theory? So I took a real compass that his dad gave him and I made it supernatural.
That's such a great twist. And it's that I always feel like the best fiction is based on fact. And,
Yes.
you know, how you can weave through, you know, things like that, it makes it so much more rich.
And the spirit and the compass itself has a rich background. When I was looking for a device, something that was supernatural or something that was very mystical, I discovered that during the time of Solomon, that to build the temple, he could not use any weapon of war. That he couldn't use an axe or anything that cut anything. And so he actually conjured from the other side of time, the Shamir stone. And the Shamir stone is a real energy being from the other side of time. And that's what Solomon built the temples with.
Right. Oh,
So
man.
I took the Shamir stone and put it in the compass. And it has holograms that come out from it. It's more than just a compass, a directional device. It's really an alive being. And we even go to Egypt, and and it shows how the temples, how the pyramids were actually built with the Shamir stone. So there's a lot of history in this book, a lot of intrigue, and the Shamir stone really lightens up and brings in people like Mary Magdalene. When the boys go on a treasure hunt, I take them on a treasure hunt, and she appears to them, and that's a story in itself.
Oh yeah, like that's what I was just thinking. There's so many spin-off opportunities here. And we do have a question that popped up in the chat here, which I think is appropriate to ask right now. There must be a sequel.
Well, actually, the sequel hasn't been coming forward for this story. I know there are people asking about a sequel, but the compass itself could be a series on the compass. And Tesla came forward in terms of the next character that I could possibly do, because he was a person of light and technology. And I thought maybe he and Raka and Arka were friends in Atlantis. So that there's a seed for that story.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sometimes all it takes is that little story spark and you can just go and go. So that would be a great, and again, like there's so much history encompassed in this from the little bit that we've heard about just in the past few minutes, that there's so many opportunities for you to pull from multiple directions.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how long have you been writing?
I started my writing career when I was in business. I was in marketing and business development for about 40 years. Wow. So making things up was sort of what I learned to do.
Right.
However, when it came to writing fiction, that in itself was a whole new way of writing. But I did know grammar.
That helps. Yes, good foundation.
And I have a creative imagination. So putting those two things together really helped me. And I love to read. I think reading is really important if you're going to be a writer.
I could not agree more.
So, Ray Bradbury is a great science fiction author for people to read if they want to write science fiction fantasy. And then Ken Follett, I love his stories and the way he layers history with story. And that's really, he was my model for Einstein's compass, to layer the history behind the characters and drive the story through character development.
Right. And that's what makes all those books extremely amazing as well, is because it pulls those historical facts and blends it with the made up narrative. So that's a great, that's a great technique. So I know that you've done a ton of research and you spent a lot of time compiling this. What was the most difficult part of writing this book?
I think the conversations, actually the dialogue, making it interesting so that each person had their own personality and making them distinctive. And I had to imagine who these people were based on people I knew. I would compile a character like around Rocca, for example. Who was that diabolical in my life that I could create this person around? There's one character in the book, her name is the Countess. I worked for a woman like the Countess.
That's great. So
she was evil. She was so evil.
Obviously, the name has been changed, so it's cool.
Oh, yes.
But no, that's great. And see, again, that's another way that you are kind of incorporating real life into this made up narrative. So you've got, personal experience, you've got historical accuracy in there, and then it's all kind of blended together with the fictionalized narrative that you've created. It's wonderful.
I also found pictures for all the characters. So it really helped me get in my mind when I was writing, what this person really looked like. And I created a coloring book of all the characters. So it's a free download. If you send me an email at graceallisonauthor@gmail.com, I'll send you a free coloring book. And those have been really popular. I did a book funnel, and I've got, over 600 people just in a few book funnels who wanted that coloring book. So.
Well, that's great. I mean, you have a marketing background. You have to just start small.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, no, that's great. See, I'm an illustrator, so I'm always trying to figure out, the visual to blend with the narrative. And it's interesting that you kind of went that direction. And that was going to be part of my next question is, do you have a bunch of like source imagery I'm sure that you've come across in your research that, kind of helped inform a lot of this story?
Yes, I do. There are a lot of free sites for pictures, but I found that Pinterest is a good source for pictures and story development. There are these big stock, you can pay for some images. They're not expensive, and it's probably easier to go there than some of the free sites, because some of the free sites really aren't as edgy in terms of color and contrast. So some of the characters like Rocca, I did purchase some pictures. I think those are important for the main characters, especially you want people to really get that like a movie star kind of picture.
Right.
So Big Stock was a great resource for character images, especially the Countess.
Oh, yeah.
She had to have her regal look.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I feel like when you do research, especially visual research like that, it can spark so many other ideas that you can use throughout. And talk about going down a rabbit hole, Pinterest in particular, 4 hours later, you look at the clock and you're like, well, I should probably work now or something.
Yeah.
But it's all in the name of research, so it's cool.
And visuals are very important, as you know, because without the visuals, you can't really know who the characters are.
Right.
And it really does help people to get into the story if they know what the people look like.
And especially for writers, we live in such a visual dominant culture right now. Everything is visual. People love anything visual. And it's hard when you're trying to get across things in writing when you don't have the ability to include a picture. So if you can work from pictures, I would imagine it would inform your writing so that you were able to write in a more visual aware
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah. Especially places like Atlantis.
Right. Yes. Which again, you get to use your imagination for that also. So that makes it even better. Absolutely. So what did you enjoy most about, because we talked about kind of the more difficult aspects of this book. So what did you enjoy most about working on this project?
Talking to the characters, interacting with them as I was writing. I meditate, and I would I bless the story. I bless the story and I bless each character and I bless them, and they come through my heart and they talk to me in pictures and dialogue, just ways that were just so exciting, so thrilling. And I would walk around with Rocca in my head, and he's a nasty little guy, you know. And and then the spiritual Rocca would come forward in all of his beauty and his gentleness, you know, and just interacting with the characters. I didn't want to stop the story because it was so much fun having these people around.
Oh, that's great. And that's how, you know, the mark of a good story is when you really can have conversations with your characters. And that's also when you know that your character development is on point, because they are like a person, and that's exactly how you should feel about them.
I know, and there were some parts of the story, and they would tell me what they wanted me to do, and I go, "You want me to what? He's got to do what and go where? Okay." And, you know, I would write it away and I'm okay.
That's also the mark of a good author, is when you listen to your characters.
Yes.
You don't put yourself and your preferences onto them. You let them tell you what they like. And you're like, okay, well, we can roll with that. We can go that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So we've talked about the writing aspect. We've talked about the importance of visuals. So now I'd like to talk about the importance of music, because I understand that you have the theme music for your novel.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that.
I love listening to Pandora radio. Okay. And the music on Pandora, especially the piano guys, and then some of those nice stations like that have some really cool music, and it helps me with the timing and the rhythmic development of the story. And one day I was listening to this one piece of music and it caught my heart. And I said, oh my God, what is that? And so I discovered it was a group of women out of Germany, and they're called Eclipse. And the song itself was so melodic. It goes on for like 3 minutes, and I put it in my music video. So I contacted the manager of the group, and I told him what I wanted to do is I wanted to use the music video to promote my book. And he gave me permission without having to pay any copyright to use the music, as long as I used the links to their website and where people could buy the music.
Wow.
Isn't it cool?
That's like unheard of cool. Yeah.
That's another, you know, it was just so blessed. The story just kept coming, and people were willing to give and participate in this new endeavor, you know, and so it's just been a gift. And so I've used that music over and over again, and it's a beautiful piece. I don't know if you've heard it yet, but it's on the music video.
Oh, that's excellent. And again, it's just encompassing all those different aspects into one project, because that's something that I think is important for other writers as well as readers to understand, is that it's not just about the words, you know. No. It should be a feeling. And I think that, you know, incorporating things like music is a great way to enhance that.
Yes, it is. And I think it's important because we tell stories more, I think, deeper with music. Especially if you're watching TV today, the series that you're listening to or watching, mm-hmm. They've got all these different music clips now in the stories. Yeah. And because they drive more of the story now with music. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was important, especially with the video. And I want this as a movie, and that's going to be what the credits are going to be coming on with.
Oh, that's excellent. Yes, you always have to think ahead. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's, you know, another way that I think using imagery and even music can help during your writing process, because you have to think of how this story would play out like a film, and having those other elements can really kind of get you in that zone.
Yes, it does. And I wrote each chapter as it would be like a scene in a movie. Each scene was pictured as a movie, and I saw the script and the music and the drama and all of it.
Oh, that's perfect. So when you are in your creative mindset, do you have a specific place in your house that you find to be the best for kind of pulling these ideas out and getting things down on paper, like a perfect spot to write in?
Right here.
Right there.
This is
Excellent.
my office. This is
it.
my office. And if you look at, if you can't see it right now, but I have an oriental rug on the floor behind my bookcase. I do my yoga, and my desk is over there. And I've taken some chairs out, but I have a couple of chairs that I sit and I meditate. So this is my creative room. And
everybody needs a creative space, especially
yes,
now.
Yes, this is it.
So I know that a lot of the names, you know, you had talked about a couple of the characters' names in your book and the importance behind them. So how did you go about choosing these names?
They told me who they were.
Great.
Other than Albert himself, he has a friend, and his name is Johann. I made him up. He was a schoolboy friend. And I actually looked into German names, making sure that I was in the time period when Albert lived, what names were they using during his time, during his lifetime. So Johann was one. And then I came up with a schoolboy bully, someone he goes to school with, and his name is Werner von Wiesel.
That's fun to say.
And, you know, von Wiesel, he's a weasel. You know, he's a bad guy.
Right.
So I did a play on words.
That makes it fun. And that also, you know, longer books aren't generally read aloud, but sometimes they are. And that part you would want to read aloud.
Yeah.
So speaking of read aloud, I would love it if you could read a little excerpt from the story.
Okay.
And then we can take some questions from the audience.
I will be glad to do that.
Excellent. And again, if you all are just joining us, we are chatting with Grace Blair, author of Einstein's Compass, here on Zoom Into Books. And if you missed the first part of this presentation, you can watch the replay here on Facebook as well as the Zoom Into Books YouTube channel. So we're going to hear a little bit from her story now, and then we'll be taking some questions. So again, if you all have any questions, please type them into the comments, and we'll ask them here live.
All right. This is chapter 2, and this is in the fall of 1885. This is when Albert, as a young boy, meets his friend Johann for the first time. So Albert's father was a partner in his brother Jacob's gas and electric company. One day, he took Albert to see an electrical lighting system the company had installed. The customer, Frederick Thomas, owned a local brewery, Munich Biau. The reason Hermann had dragged Albert along was that Thomas had a son, Johann, who was Albert's age. Both boys would begin first grade, and Hermann thought it would be good for the shy Albert to know at least one boy in his class. Albert did not want to go with his father. He preferred the familiar routines at home. Being out in new places caused him to shut down inside. When the boys were introduced, Albert just stared at the floor, went into his own inner world. He thought boys his age were dull. He wanted to be alone. Hermann forced a smile onto his lips. He reached down and shook Albert's shoulder. Come, Albert, Johann wants to show you some new lights in the barn. Albert knew his papa would not like it if he did not do as he suggested. So reluctantly, his eyes still down, the reluctant guest shuffled over to Johann, wishing he could escape. Unfazed by Albert's shyness, Johann encouraged him with a broad grin. Wait till you see the lights. Come, I'll race you to the barn. Whooping, Johann burst out the front door and ran toward the barn. Albert rolled his eyes. He ambled along, making his way across the yard. Impatient, Johann bounced on his toes, and he waited near the barn for his guest. When Albert finally arrived, Johann flung open the barn door. Running inside, he jumped onto the wooden box, reaching for the switch on the wall. It's amazing to see, he said as he flipped the switch. In a moment, incandescent light flooded the spacious barn. The smell of fresh hay and saddle soap met Albert's nose. He noticed beer barrels stacked high on barrels of hay and horse carriages. Unimpressed by the lighting, Albert pointed to the incandescent bulb and went into lecture mode. When an electrical current passes through a wire, It causes the wire to heat. The wire gets so hot that it glows and gives off light. Johann looked at Albert in surprise, his blue eyes dancing with amazement. He could not believe what he was hearing. How do you know that? The boy is interested in this, Albert thought to himself. Albert relaxed a bit and began to explain, encouraged that he seemed to have impressed Johann. Papa takes me to work with him. He teaches me about electricity. He and my uncle want me to learn the lighting business and apprentice with them. No kidding? Johann asked with obvious interest. Is that what you want to do? Albert shrugged. I don't know. I guess it could be okay. Johann nodded, becoming thoughtful. I know what you mean. My papa has plans for my brothers and me to take over the brewery. But I don't know if I want to do that either. Another smile lit up Johann's face. Hey, I know. I'll become a great brewer and you can electrify all my breweries. Albert had to smile. Johann's friendliness and enthusiasm were infectious. Without warning, a light bulb went off on the electric expert's head. Wait a second, Albert said, tugging at the chain around his neck, pulling out of his linen shirt. Want to see something exciting? You mean more interesting than light bulbs? You bet, Johann nodded eagerly. As Albert dangled a brass object on a silver chain, his eyes grew large. Wow, what is that? It's a compass. My father gave it to me. Have you ever seen one before? Shaking his head, Johann guided Albert over to the bale of hay, and the two boys sat. I haven't, Johann said, mesmerized by the fantastic device. What does it do? Albert held out the gleaming brass compass with the 12 sparkling gems. So Johann could see it better. He opened the top and rotated the compass. See how the needle always points north no matter how I move the case? His bright brown eyes twinkled as the mystery of the unknown captured his soul. Someday I'll understand why it does that. Johann's blue eyes grew even more extensive. Not only had he never seen a compass before, he had never seen anything like it. Amid this fantastic day, Johann paused and thought. He had two older brothers, Francis and Daniel, who worked in the brewery, but they never talked like Albert did. His father, Frederick, a Lutheran, said the Einsteins were Jewish. Maybe that's the reason why he knew so much. Albert surrendered himself to the moment. He found himself trusting his charming friend and friendly companion and allowed Johann to hold his cherished prize. Johann opened and closed the clasp. Hey, come on, said Johann, jumping to his feet. Their eyes glued to the compass, the two boys marched around the barn and watched the needle. Content with their first parade, they returned to their seats. Johann closed his eyes and held his precious gift to his chest. Oh, I love my compass. I love my papa who gave it to me. The compass tingled against Albert's chest. From inside the compass, a shimmer of light burst and radiated all around, 10 inches around Albert's hand. Albert felt the unexpected warmth and opened his eyes to find a rainbow projecting from the gems. Above the compass floated the number 33. Johann struck in wonder. Look at that! Albert threw his hands up in surprise, dropping the compass on the floor. The boy sat mesmerized for what seemed like an eternity. Behind them, the barn door opened. Papa Herman hollered in the barn. Albert, say goodbye to Johann. Your mama has dinner. Albert snatched up the compass and looked earnestly at his new friend. Johann, you must never tell anyone what happened today. You promise? Speechless, Johann nodded with compliance. Bonded by a special secret, neither boy had any inkling what a vital role the compass would play in the adventure of their lives.
Oh, that was so great. I can hear the applause echoing from Facebook viewers everywhere. Oh, that's fantastic. And see, that was a perfect choice because it made me want to continue reading. I was really upset. I was super upset when you stopped. So that was a good choice.
Yeah, that sets up the story.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So we do have a question from a viewer. What is your favorite scene in the book?
My favorite scene, I think, is the beginning of the book, the prologue, where we go to Atlantis. And there's a second scene of Atlantis later in the story. I think they are probably the hardest I had were to write.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in terms of time, which is like 25,000 years ago, it was the most interesting. It was the most interesting, and probably the just visually more incredible.
Right. We have another question from Jackie. Did having a co-author speed up or slow down the writing?
Well, yes and no. My co-author also is someone who works on a lot of books. So because he was doing this practically pro bono, he was doing this on his spare time. It did take a lot longer to write because I wasn't paying him for his time.
Right.
But he wanted to be part of it because we've been friends for so many years. And he was really very vital as a part of the story and the way he helped me put the story together.
That's excellent. And it's unique that you were friends before, because a lot of times with, it's the whole you shouldn't go into business with your friends type thing. So it's good that you all are able to mesh that way, because if you're writing something with somebody, you really have to connect on, that creative level, which is not always easy to do. Especially
it was seamless. It was very seamless. I would write something and he'd write something back. I mean, it just really flowed very, very easily until it came to the end. And I had a definite way I wanted it to end, and he wanted another. And I go, sorry.
Well, there has to be some give and take. The whole thing is a compromise. So it sounds like most things were, reached pretty easily. So if there's one or two, good. Because I know a lot of times that, like I said, it's difficult to try and understand somebody else's creative mindset. So it's really unique to find another person that you share that with.
I was blessed to have Blair come forward and participate. He was very, very helpful, and I couldn't have done it without him.
That's excellent. So to end, I'd like to ask you a question that hopefully everybody's still listening. What advice do you have for aspiring writers?
If you're going to take on writing a novel, understand that this is a business. It's great to put words on paper, but as Jackie knows, as Jeannie knows, this is a business. And you have to understand that you are going to be the center of that business, and no one's going to make it happen but you. There are a lot of traditional publishers out there, but for the most part, even if you get a publisher who's traditionally publishing your book, you're going to do most of the work. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to nobody can sell your book better than you can personally, because if the author is standing there with the book, people are going to be so much more likely to buy it because it's cool to meet the author. Like regardless of what genre, what age group, anything, it's just neat to meet an author. So I feel like the more involved authors and illustrators are in general, the better the book is going to do.
Absolutely. And you have to know marketing. As Jackie knows, that marketing is such a key because of Amazon and the way that they're controlling the way books are purchased today. And there's so many more books. I mean, there's thousands of books being published every day. It's not like in the 20s when you had a handful of authors and everybody bought from that handful of authors. Today, we have so many more opportunities to read and so many more authors. You have to do things to make yourself visible.
Yeah, we have one more question that just came in. Do you do school visits or presentations?
I am set up to do Zoom presentations, and I can do school visits. I'm actually a speaker on Monster Inc., the series of children's books. So I am available to do school presentations. And send me an email, graceallisonauthor@gmail.com, and contact me, and we can set up something to do for schools and libraries.
Excellent. That's really important, especially, in the COVID era that we are currently living in. Virtual visits are becoming a major thing. So that's good that you're able to do that. Before we sign off here, where can people buy your book?
They can buy it on any of the social media platforms, Amazon, Kobo, iTunes, anywhere that there is a bookstore, you can find me there. I'm also available on Amazon. And there's also Ingram Spark for those librarians and people who like to buy in bulk from Ingram. And it's available for the bookstores. For the libraries, it's the Overdrive, where libraries can download the books there. And also you can go to my website, einsteinscompassbook.com, and you'll find all the bookstores on my website, as well as the overview of the book. And you can sign up to receive my newsletter.
Yes, newsletters are key, especially again in the era of COVID when everybody's doing things online.
And well, it's a free coloring book of all the characters. You send me an email, graceallisonauthor@gmail.com, and I'll send you a coloring book of all of the characters. And this is a great book for grandparents if you're looking for something for children for Christmas. It's a great book. It's also an audio book. I hired an actor to do all the voices, Kurt Bonham, so that it also syncs with the Kindle. So if some children have a difficulty reading and following a story, they can listen to it, listen to the audiobook, and read it on the Kindle at the same time. So their reading can be improved that way.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. It's a great learning tool, indeed. Well, Grace, it has been so nice having you here on Zoom Into Books. We really appreciate you chatting with us. And again, if any of you all listening missed the first part of the presentation, the replay will be available here on our social media pages, as well as the Headline Books page. So again, Grace, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and I hope that you get to continue your creativity here during COVID.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. It's been such a pleasure.